So next we're going to talk about liberalism. And so while political liberals agree on a lot of things, that people should be treated equally, so they should have the liberty to live as they wish, and they want the right to private property, and they also agree that state interventions shouldn't be too widespread or too they don't want a lot of control over people's lives, let's say that, private lives, but they want to maintain order. But they go further than some other views where they want to promote egalitarianism, or at least equality of opportunity in various ways. So John Rawls has a couple of really famous books. One called Political Liberalism, where he talks about his view, his version of this. And what he was trying to go against, in part, was the idea of utilitarianism in politics, because he didn't think that it was really very effective. He thought that the idea of maximizing happiness really just ended up being sort of, in practice, achieving an average level of happiness in society. He thought that it was it would result, though, in an unstable political system. He didn't like that utilitarianism lacked a focus on individual rights, and he really just didn't think it was a fair and just society. So he's into the idea of justice, and it's his particular idea of justice. One of his most famous theories is this thing called the original position, sometimes called the veil of ignorance too. So he used a version of, in various places, something called the original position, where we're supposed to imagine ourselves in an impartial point of view. So we don't know our economic status, our social position, other relevant factors, race, sex, economic status, we already said that. Anyway, all these things, religion, that's another one. So, and he asks, if we didn't know all these things, how would we choose principles of social justice and political order? Because presumably, if we don't know which position we will be in, we will want them all to be as equal as possible, or as having as many advantages as possible. So presumably, if you don't know if you're going to be poor, you want the poor to be treated well, for example. The concept of justice is important to Rawls, and he emphasizes that citizens must agree on this conception of justice, and that none of the principles, and especially justice, of the government can be linked to a particular religious or cultural view. But at the same time, that it shouldn't be in opposition to the religious and moral views of the citizens. So people have to agree on what justice is for their society. And there's a lot of talk in political philosophy about freedom. So negative freedom is our right to be free from harm. So this is what the libertarians were interested in. We enter into social contracts partly for this. Remember, Hobbes said this. And most people and political philosophers will agree that this is one of the biggest roles of the state, is to protect people's negative freedom. The positive freedoms is where it becomes more difficult to decide what people have a right to and what their freedom consists of. But for Rawls, like Aristotle, to have freedom, you must have basic means in order to actually exercise the freedom. So Rawls talks a lot about equality, not just in name only, because you can technically be able to own a company, and this is kind of what libertarians often say. Well, everyone has the right to own the means of production, but that right is not really doesn't mean very much if most people don't have the means to do that. That kind of freedom is a freedom in name only, Rawls would say. So again, this idea comes in his idea of fair equality of opportunity. So he doesn't want meritocracy in the sense that, in the libertarian sense, where the people who are more deserving should have more. He calls himself an egalitarian, so he really wants to have individual opportunity, though he still doesn't want necessarily totally equal distribution of wealth in a communist sort of sense, but he wants to make sure that it is truly opportunity. So again, a lot of people come into this world with advantages, accidents of birth, skills or talents, race, gender, religious things that can help or hurt them that are not under their control. And he thinks that we need to sort of make sure that everybody has equal opportunity no matter what of those factors they are born with or end up with. And again, inequality is acceptable as long as it benefits the least advantaged members of society. And I think I already kind of talked about this, that it's not really compatible, it's not really the same as libertarianism, though it might seem like it at first, because there has to be a direct benefit for Rawls. And again, also, he does not want to allow people to simply take all the resources on the premise that, well, I got these for fairly, or I'm going to help other people with them, without a clear advantage to the least advantaged. So again, Rawls knows that people can have skills or be born into wealth that other people don't have. But he says that because of this, they don't deserve a larger portion of the wealth of the society. So those with these skills or these advantages can use them to get more wealth for themselves, but only if their action benefits those with fewer advantages. So again, he's egalitarian rather than meritocratic. And a lot of libertarians and people like that with similar views want to criticize Rawls for this point. They say that, again, libertarians are big on this, that those who work hard are punished if they're forced to give some of their wealth to the poor or use their success to prop up the members of the lower class. And they say that individual freedom is more important than wealth inequality, so it's supererogatory to expect people to give up their goods to help others. And this is their opposition to taxes and to all this kind of stuff. And so they want to criticize Rawls on this point. But Katrina Forster, interestingly, and some other people criticize Rawls from a different way, and almost the opposite way, which is that, look, his focus on egalitarianism and this definition of justice in this kind of way is legalistic and is sort of one size fits all. So by pushing the racism, colonialism, sexism to the side and sort of ignoring it and saying that we're not going to consider that, she thinks is not really, doesn't really work, because you can't just get rid of these things. She says that it's ignoring the way that the world order has been created by these things, and that trying to make an impersonal kind of justice this way is really not going to work, because again you have all these inequalities built in, and to try to level them out in this ham-handed way is really not going to work. So she thinks that he's going to preserve or even exacerbate the unfairness in society by trying to ignore it. It's kind of like this argument that ignoring race and ignoring sex in society is in itself sexist or racist, because you are not being able to express or understand the experiences of people who have these discrimination against them. So this is her critique of Rawls, and it is probably a stronger critique, I think, than the libertarian critique.